Hello guys. So I just managed to host a live stream and also managed to delete that stream, even though I wanted to save it because I got interrupted by a phone call from my girlfriend, and yeah, I kind of lost it. So this video is gonna be a quick recap of what I talked about in that video. So here I'm just creating a blank project because I want to carry over some stuff to show some lighting conditions I've been working on, and also get some nice looking scene here. So I'm also gonna bring in my open up my see, I can't seem to open that one. Hang on a sec. Just need to change this one. This was the first one I made, which I managed to delete. So just gonna call this delete project. And this project is currently empty, and my delete project has the cliff I'm interested in. So I'm gonna migrate that into that new blank project I just made here. So there we go. So now we can start off all the way from the beginning. I should also mention that I in the original stream I showed how to show a little bit with a nice smooth camera, and I'm gonna be covering that in a later video, probably the next one, hopefully tomorrow. So instead of doing it in this one, I'm just gonna do it tomorrow. But anyway, the rock I've been working on recently was this one, and it looks like this when I bring it into the scene. So what I wanted to achieve with this was to get this to look a little bit better than it is looking right now. So if I want to use static lighting, I could tweak on a number of things, because currently I have a light source, which is directional light. That's all I have. I think it's up here somewhere. Yep. Just bring it down here so I can see where it is. And let's see, we don't have anything else. So we have the sky sphere, which is also providing some light, I believe. It does something. Anyway, what I tend to do when I experiment with this is to make sure that my exposure is set fixed to at log 0. So that what that does basically is to make sure that it doesn't change the lighting when I change from from a very dark area to something which is somewhat light. You can see that happening here. So just go to fixed at log, and it's gonna keep it here even though I'm in a very dark area, and come up to a very lit area. Okay. So one other thing I added, and I'm gonna be moving a little bit faster than I did in the stream, because I was experimenting a little bit. So I'm just gonna begin with start by adding a post-process volume, and this is also let's drag it out here and set it to unbound, which means that it doesn't matter if I'm inside the post-processing volume or outside. It's going to be affecting whatever settings we have, no matter where the camera is. And for the settings, we can also actually under auto exposure, we can set them minimum and maximum brightness to a fixed value. There's also a way of making sure that the camera doesn't tone up and down when I come from a dark, very poorly lit area to a bright area. But anyway, what I wanted to do was to see if I could get this to look a little bit better. And I wanted to specifically play around with ambient occlusion. And what that does is basically to create some kind of soft shadows around things that are close together. So for example, in this case here, when I have my rock rotated like this, I'm gonna maybe pull it down, I don't know, something like this. So right now we can see there's a big black shadow down here underneath it, and it just looks pretty solid black, and it's not really looking that good. So I'm basically just trying to make this look somewhat better. And what I did was to play around with dynamic lights, which means that things are going to be set to movable. It's very hard to say. So you can see a little orange light bulb up here is going to be changing from yellow to orange when it's movable, and that means that you can just easily tell from the world outliner if it's if you have your lightings being movable or stationary or static. In that case, it disappears. So for example, the cliff, this is currently set to static. So if I set it to movable, it becomes orange as well. So that's a good little thing to know. Right, so I'm going to set our directional light to movable, and that alone doesn't really do much. So I'm going to build lighting just to see what that changes, and it creates some even darker areas. So what I like to do here is to actually use the Skylight, sorry. You can find that under lights, Skylight. So drag one of these guys in here, and that's gonna create this effect here. So if we change this also to movable, you can see this comes in as stationary, and set this to movable. Things change a little bit also. So these very harsh areas, dark areas on the stone or on the rock up here disappears. And if we keep this on stationary just for a moment and build, we should see something change, hopefully. Yeah, you can see it tones the sharp areas down a little bit, but it doesn't really create that kind of nice blending I'm after underneath the rock here. So what I'm going to do is set this to movable, and oops, not that one, the Skylight. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit and see what we can tweak here. We have the intensity, so if I set this to 0, it basically means I don't have this Skylight available at all. So we can set this to a little bit lower intensity, so it's going to give it a little bit of something. Which is going to be looking okay, but still not perfectly good yet. So I should say that I did manage to create something which was looking pretty okay with all stationary lights, but I kind of like this to be dynamic completely, because it allows me to have a dynamic day-night cycle running, which in some cases is pretty cool. And I should also mention that using dynamic lights can have a pretty hard impact on performance, so I'm not gonna be worrying too much about it, because for my purpose of this, I'm going to be using this for some kind of cinematic scene, and for that, if you're doing something similar, then you can do this as well. So in order to get some of this to look a little bit better, we can play around with the screen space ambient occlusion, which I believe is what you find under the post-process volume. And if you are watching this and know that that's not the case, then please feel free to comment on the video, because as far as I could read, and I was a little bit uncertain about what was what, so I just assumed that this was the way it worked. So what I'm going to do here is to tweak these values here. You can see the intensity changes these dark areas quite dramatically, and we can also tweak the radius here as well. And actually here we can see some of that area down underneath the stone is going to be affected as well. And in this case, this is actually what I was looking for, to get some of that shadowing underneath to show up. But it doesn't really, well, it's kind of hard to hit a good spot here. So instead of using this only this screen space ambient occlusion stuff you have under the post-process volume, we can enable what is it called, depth distance field ambient occlusion, which currently is disabled. And the way to enable that is by going to the project settings and rendering, and scroll down to this checkbox called generate mesh distance fields, and the tooltip says whether to build distance fields of static meshes needed for distance field AO, which is used to implement movable skylight shadows, for example, and ray trace distance field shadows for directional light. So this is actually what I wanted. So I'm going to enable this one, and it's going to say I need to restart my editor. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So let's see. We have the wrong map loaded. Here we go. Right. So you can see already now the scene changed quite dramatically, because now we have this very dark occluded, or I don't know what you call it, area, and this was actually what I wanted somewhat. And while it may be a little bit too dark, it can still tweak a little bit on the intensity here, which will give it a little bit less aggressive blackness down here. But it also allows me to tweak the minimum occlusion, which is this. This is the minimum, which is a black area. So I can tweak this all the way up to 1, which means basically I won't have any ambient occlusion. So by lowering this to some kind of level, which I think looks good for my taste. So let's say 0.2 maybe. Then I can keep this here. And I also change the contrast here if I want this to be a little bit more like this, for example. This looks pretty good. The occlusion max distance, it's a value you can set between 200 and 1500, and it says the higher values increases the cost of the distance field AO exponentially, so definitely don't want to keep this too high, but still want to keep it high enough to get something which looks okay to you. So I'm just gonna keep 800 here, because right now it looks okay to me, I think. So what I like to do is also to circle around whatever I'm working on to make sure that I don't get too many weird things also in the lit areas. So right now I'm looking at these kind of dark patches here, which I don't really like too much. I think this is an issue with my normal map, which I currently have toned down. Actually, we can see how that looks if I just set this to 1. And we can see all the normals are being pretty clear. So what I did here was to just take this null generated normal map. I tried actually with both XNormal and 3D Studio Max and ZBrush, and this one from the demo version I have installed from Null. And I couldn't really tell that much of a difference. Some very slight differences, but yeah, I just randomly picked this one for this video. So what I do here is just to multiply the red with a number, and I multiply the green with that same number, and then I append these two guys, and then I append the blue one. So that's basically going to allow me to tone the normal up or down. So that's going to go in here. I also have the ambient occlusion map, which I generated. I think I did that from XNormal. I have that plugged into the ambient occlusion node here. So if I unplug that and just hit save, it's not gonna show that much of a difference with this setup right now. I'm just gonna see if it does make a difference. Does something. I can't really say how much it does, but it seems like it's doing something. Yeah, it's very subtle, but I like to keep this on. And also one thing to note is that for this setup here, I have an albedo map. Actually, I have one here, and I have detail texture in a node here with a tiling texture object. But well, I could just go with this one, to be honest, and I have a very low specular. And since I have a height map here generated, I think this was also from XNormal. In these two maps here, they are grayscale textures. So I read a few articles on the internet. I can't really figure out what is the best, but some people say that it's good to hide it away, for example, inside the alpha for the albedo and with the base color, and hide this one away in, for example, the normal map. But I read somewhere that it might not be optimal in terms of memory consumption and so. And a better way was to just create one map with the AO in the red channel and the height map in the green channel, which you can do just in Photoshop. But I didn't do this for this example because I'm just testing some stuff out. And actually, I'm not really using the height map right now, which is used for if I had tessellation. I just experimented a little bit with that. So that's really I don't really use it anyway. All right, so that was just a little bit about the material itself. So yeah, well, I think this really covers what I wanted or I mentioned on my stream. So basically I tweak the distance field, ambient occlusion. I might have enabled ray trace distance field, whether to use ray trace distance field shadows. I can't really see any difference at all when I turn it on off, and I haven't entirely figured out how it works, I must say. So yeah, don't hate me for that. I will eventually figure something out how this works. I think the light light source angle should affect it somehow. No? Or maybe it's the distance, I'm not really sure. Distance, sphere, okay, never mind. I'm not gonna waste time on that. So what, as I was saying, yeah, one last thing I'm gonna do is to pop in another guy here and just rotate this around a little bit, because actually what I wanted to achieve with this was to create some kind of rock cliff something, consisting out of multiple instances of this this rock I made, because if it's just standing alone it doesn't really look that good. It looks kind of weird. So let's just see what we can create here. Yeah. Something like that. Okay. So obviously I want some of these areas to be, for example, here when they intersect, I want them to be have that ambient occlusion effect, so it's a bit easier to read the topology of this rock here. And right now I don't really see exactly what I wanted. So I'm just gonna see if I can get that to show a little bit better. So even though I now use distance field ambient occlusion, I believe the settings for the post-process volume still has an effect, because we can see something is happening when I tweak this, and it definitely has some effect here. So I think I like this setting here, maybe 200. Yeah, well, I think this area looks pretty good. It's maybe a little bit too dark, but that's something I can maybe tweak up a little bit by upping that one. Maybe that was a little bit too much actually. Maybe tone down the contrast. 0.6 something, 0.25, wherever. I guess this is going to be different for you anyway, but yeah, I'm just showing which parameters here I'm playing with, so you have an idea what to tweak on. Yeah, and I might want to tone down my normal skin just a little bit, something like 0.6. So right now I have these very dark areas. It just gets a little bit less. That was a little bit too much maybe. Yeah, this looks probably okay. Since this was used, I used some of these settings for some kind of cinematic scene. I also used a vignette, this one, which creates this dark area around. Alright, so as I mentioned in another video, I have some issues sometimes with some of these ambient occlusion shadows, which seems to be floating around. And right now it's not that visible because I toned it quite a bit down. I could go really crazy with it. So if you find yourself in that situation, then and you know how to fix it, I would be very interested in that, since I have that issue still. The only reason why I don't see it right now is because I don't have that aggressive settings as, for example, now. So here we can probably see. No. But anyway, some of these areas, they were actually floating around. Just gonna turn off the vignette here. Okay. But anyway, it's way too dark for my taste, so I'm gonna set it back to, what was this, having 0.6, 0.25, maybe 0.2. This looks okay. So, yeah, I think that was it for this video. So in the next, I'm gonna show how we can create a little camera control, which we can use to show off scenes like this without having all this jittery, as we can see here. If we want to create some kind of a circling camera, which we can then use to record using the sequencer to create some nice scenes. But that's for another video. So thank you for watching, and sorry for the mess with the videos. Bye bye.